Are you thinking about becoming a commercial pilot here in New Zealand? If you are, then you've come across the right video. I'm going to attempt to lay out the steps that you need to take in order to go from 0 flight hours in order to get your commercial pilot license, and then eventually finding a job as well. So I'm going to lay out the path to take. So this is specifically for those that are in New Zealand. So my name is Tiz, and I am a commercial pilot and flight instructor working here in New Zealand. If you are watching from overseas, some of these principles may apply, but just note this is not specific to any other country but New Zealand. So stay on board, stay tuned, and I'll give you the steps to take in order to get that commercial license. So who is this video for? This video is for high school leavers and you are looking to get into the work industry and you want to be a pilot. And number 2, it's for those that want to change careers. I was in that same boat. I owned and operated a gym for 6 years prior to actually getting into aviation and getting my commercial license. And number 3, for those that just want to earn some money as a pilot and perhaps you already have your private pilot license. So step number 1 is going to be getting your class 1 medical. Now, a class 1 medical will include a class 2 medical, and a class 2 medical is required for your private pilot license. You can also get your private pilot license with a class 1, and you can get that commercial with a class 1. The biggest mistake you don't want to do is have a class 2 medical and you've got your private pilot license and then do all your training with that class 2 medical. You're near your flight test now, or you're getting closer to finishing your commercial license, and you need to get that class 1 and then find out you have an underlying medical condition which stops you from actually getting it, and therefore stopping you getting your commercial license. So that would be a lot of money down the drain because you didn't get that class 1 first, and find out if you have potentially any underlying issues. So step number 1 is get that class 1 medical. Step number 2 is going to be find a flight school or an Aeroclub where you can do your training. Now, the flight school and the Aeroclubs will probably be, or you'd have to consider your current location. So where you are based in New Zealand, if you want to stay locally, or if you are willing to move somewhere else in order to attend a flight school potentially. Now, it's really important that these flight schools or the Aeroclub has the aircraft that you require. If you're looking to get into the airlines in the future, whether it's overseas or specifically in New Zealand, you're going to want to get a multi-engine instrument rating or a multi-engine rating with a separate instrument rating. So you're going to require a multi-engine aircraft and facilities in order to facilitate getting an IFR rating as well, and that's also going to mean IFR rated aircraft or IFR capable aircraft. IFR, if you're not too sure what that means, it stands for Instrument Flight Rules. All your initial training will be under VFR, which is Visual Flight Rules. There's also something called an Air New Zealand Preferred Training Organisation. These are typically your bigger flight schools, and they train you in regards to your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, to an airline standard, or what the airline specifically in New Zealand wants to see in their pilots. So do consider that as well. And then really important, making sure you get along with the people there and the instructors themselves. You're going to be spending a lot of money in this endeavour to get your commercial license, so you want to make sure you're learning as much as you can and you're really gelling with the people that you're working with as well. That brings us to step number 3, and that is now actually going for your private pilot license. At this point in time, you should have your training completed or almost completed, and now you're going to get that license itself. Now, in order to get that license, you need 50 hours minimum of total flight time. You may require more. Generally, most students test between 60 and 70 hours on average. A private pilot license will cost, on average, also around $35,000, give or take, depends how much training you need, and also the hourly rate of your aircraft that you're training in, and also of the instructors as well. Along with that, you need an English language proficiency test done, and this is to actually just give you the license. So you can do your training and then do the English test, However, you won't get the license until you can provide the results of that test. On a side note, with your private pilot license, you need to be 16 years of age to actually go solo, and then you need to be 17 years of age to actually have your private pilot license. So keep that in mind as well. You'll also need to have completed 6 theory exams for your private pilot license. Let's say you've done that, you've got your private pilot license, you are now on to your commercial license, which is the next stage. Now, your commercial pilot license, you need to have completed another 6 theory exams, your commercial pilot license exams, and you need to be a minimum of 18 years old to actually hold your commercial pilot license. Now, with your commercial pilot license, in terms of costs, once again, on average, you're probably going to be looking around $85,000. And if you are a New Zealand citizen or a New Zealand resident and you're training at an approved education provider for flying, which are generally your big flight schools, you can also get a student loan as well. Now, your student loan will only cover $35,000 per EFT. So one EFT is generally kind of like 1 year's worth of training. So StudyLink will provide 2 EFTs and you'll get $70,000 as in total for it. So make sure if you are going for your student loan that you do it at an approved education provider, and you need to be a New Zealand resident or a citizen. Now, for your commercial pilot license, along with the pricing of that will get you to roughly about 200 hours, because you need to have 200 hours total time as a minimum to actually take your commercial pilot license flight test. Now, what are some optional ratings you can get? So for step number 5, we briefly touched on multi-engine rating and instrument rating, and you can also, as an optional extra, as your flight instructor rating. So generally, as part of your commercial license training, these can be done together as a multi-engine instrument rating if you have an IFR capable multi-engine aircraft. And generally your big flight schools will have those aircraft available for you to train in. Now, in a flight instructor rating, if you want to work as a flight instructor and actually teach people how to fly, you're going to need this flight instructor rating. And this is done on top of your commercial license. So you need to have that commercial license first, and then you can go for your instructor rating. Now, with all of this as well, to actually get your commercial license, you don't technically need your multi-engine rating, and you don't actually need your IFR rating. Most people tend to get this because majority of people, not everyone, but the majority of people generally want to go to the airlines in the future, so they include that all in your training, because if you want to work in the airlines, you're going to need a multi-engine rating and you're going to need an IFR rating. So steps number 6 is a bonus tip, and this is for job hunting and also outbuilding roles. First thing you want to do is look for commercial operators. Go in person and introduce yourself and hand in your CV. It's far better than actually emailing in your CV. Now, that's not to say you won't get a job in the industry just by emailing in your CV. Many people have. However, if you think about it, everyone else is coming out in the same boat, and you've all got the same qualification and you all have similar hours, and you all want to go for these minimal number of jobs that are available out there. So if you want to stand out, make sure you go in person, introduce yourself, have a smile on your face, make conversation, and give them your CV. Therefore, you're going to stay, pretty much at the top of their mind if there is a job becoming available in the future, or if one is available there and then. You never know, so make sure you go in person and introduce yourself. Now, if you have a flight instructor rating, you can go to Aeroclub specifically and flight schools and also hand in your CV. If you don't have a flight instructor rating, you can't actually teach people how to learn to fly, so you may not be able to get a flying role at these schools, because generally they will hire flight instructors. So do consider that as well. What you can next do is also travel abroad. So many pilots, after getting their commercial pilot license here in New Zealand, actually travel abroad. And one very common country is Australia. It's not too far away. And typically you'll find a lot of jobs available for low-hour pilots or recently commercially rated pilots. You won't usually find these in the main centres of Australia, but typically towards the Northern Territory and further out, more rural and in the outback, you will find some jobs. Now it's really good because yes, you are going to be isolated and further away from people and away from home. However, it's a really good way of building some good flight hours, which is going to progress your career forward. A lot of what people don't typically tell you as well is getting a job comes down to a lot of persistence and also the right timing. It's quite difficult to get a job there and then on the spot, your first try. It's going to take, once again, some persistence and consistency in applying at places, introducing yourself, handing in your CV. So if you're willing to put the work in, you will get a job eventually. However, if the timing is right, you could score one straight off the bat as well. So it is really dependent. However, do expect to put a little bit of grit into it to get your first role. A lot of what will help you actually get your first flying role as well is life experience and any other skills that you may have. Once again, as I mentioned just before, you are competing against everyone else who is in the same boat, just recently qualified with very similar flight hours and pretty much the same ratings that you have. So what are the skills and what other life experience could you have or that could you get in order to set yourself apart from other people as well? Okay, coming towards the end of the video, I'm just going to give you some success tips as well. Now, you want to make sure you really choose the right Aeroclub or flight school for you. Visit some of the places if you're considering different ones. Get in touch with them, have a phone call with them, get the general vibe of that flight school or Aeroclub. It's going to make a huge difference in terms of your training and how well you progress through. Pair with an instructor that you work really well with. Now, you won't always have that same instructor for every single flight. Most flight schools or Aeroclubs will give you a primary instructor. However, just due to schedules and timings, and perhaps if one instructor is sick, you may need to be paired with someone else. Now, this is not a bad thing because you will learn something different from every instructor, and each instructor has their own personal way of teaching. So what you may learn from your primary instructor is great, and they might have the skills in order to give you everything necessary that you need to learn and know. However, if you are struggling with something a little bit more and you're not quite getting it from your primary instructor, now being paired with another instructor may give you that little tidbit of knowledge or instructing to actually help you progress through that perhaps sticking point, you could say. So don't be afraid of being paired with different instructors as well. Always stay current with your theory, and if you're doing your exams, obviously don't take too long to get them done. Make sure you study hard, learn the knowledge, apply that knowledge and get that exam completed. Now, you're going to be learning throughout your whole career in aviation as a pilot. You're never not learning, so always stay up to date and current with all the information that you've learnt, and that will just keep you pretty much progressing all throughout your career, and you're not having to relearn everything all at once for that next stage when you get there. Think early about the path you want to take. So while you're in the midst of doing your private pilot license, think to yourself, spend some time and sit down and decide, okay, what do you want to do for your flying career? Is it staying in GA, which is general aviation, and just doing like scenic flights and commercial ops or commercial operations? In that sense, for example, like Milford Sound flights, you're going to Milford Sound and back from Queenstown, that's all general aviation, GA flights. Or are you wanting to get to the airlines? That's going to pretty much dictate your path that you're going to take and the ratings that you will require. And tagging along with that is plan early for your first job. So towards the end of your commercial or even beforehand, start contacting operators, get your name out there, it's really important. And the same thing if you are planning to do your instructor rating, you'll know then after you finish your commercial to get your instructor rating, and you want to make a good impression on those flight schools and Aeroclubs, just in case something pops up and the timing's right and you can score your first gig instructing people how to fly. Now, if you're really serious about becoming a pilot here in New Zealand, all I ask from you for this video is to press the subscribe button. I'm going to aim to give you the best advice I can give you and tips and tricks in order to progress along your flying career and through your training as well. So hit subscribe, appreciate you watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.